You've probably traced your family tree back a few generations, maybe to a great-grandparent, if you're lucky enough to have the records. But your real family tree goes back further than any name you'll ever find. It goes back 200,000 years, to one woman. Not the first woman, not the only woman alive at the time. Just the only one whose bloodline never broke. Every single person on Earth right now, 8 billion of us, carries a piece of her inside every cell in our body. Scientists call her Mitochondrial Eve. But the real story of how we found her, and what she actually means, is far stranger than the name suggests. Here's what you were probably taught. Somewhere, long ago, there was a first man and a first woman. Everyone else descended from that single pair. It's a clean story. It's a satisfying story. It is also completely wrong. Mitochondrial Eve was not alone. She lived alongside thousands of other women. She had sisters. She had friends. She had rivals for food and shelter and attention. So why is she the one we remember, and they are not? The answer isn't about who was strongest, or smartest, or most fertile. It's about a tiny structure inside your cells that most people never think about. It's called the mitochondrion, and it's about to change how you see your own body. Every cell in you is powered by mitochondria. Think of them as batteries, tiny ancient batteries, floating by the thousands inside almost every cell you have. They convert food into usable energy. Without them, you couldn't lift a finger, let alone survive. But mitochondria have a secret. Unlike the rest of your DNA, which mixes and reshuffles from both your parents, mitochondrial DNA comes from your mother alone. Your father's mitochondria get destroyed almost immediately after fertilization. Only hers survive the journey into you. That means your mitochondrial DNA is a direct, unbroken copy of your mother's, and hers is a direct copy of her mother's, and hers of her mother's, stretching back in an unbroken maternal line for as long as humans have existed. It never mixes. It never combines. It just gets passed down, almost like a fossil hiding inside your own cells. Why does that matter? Because it means scientists can use it like a clock. If two people share very similar mitochondrial DNA, their maternal lines split apart recently. If the DNA is very different, they split apart long ago. Somewhere, if you follow every single maternal line on the planet backward, they all have to converge. They all have to meet at one woman. That woman is Mitochondrial Eve, and in 1987, 3 scientists actually found her. Rebecca Cann, Mark Stoneking, and Alan Wilson, working out of Berkeley, sequenced mitochondrial DNA from 147 people from across the globe: Africa, Asia, Europe, Australia, the Pacific. They built a kind of family tree, not of names, but of genetic differences, and traced every branch backward to see where they converged. What they found stunned the scientific world. Every single branch, no matter where the person lived today, traced back to Africa. Not just broadly to Africa, to one woman who lived there roughly 200,000 years ago. The paper was published in Nature. The name Mitochondrial Eve appeared almost as a joke in the press coverage, borrowed from the Bible, and it stuck instantly. But the science underneath the catchy name was, and still is, one of the most important discoveries in human history. Here's the twist that even most science documentaries get wrong. Mitochondrial Eve was not the only woman alive at the time capable of passing on genes. She lived among a population of maybe 10,000 other humans. So how did her line survive while every single other maternal line on Earth eventually died out? It wasn't because she was special. It's because of a brutal, quiet kind of math called genetic drift. Imagine every woman alive at that time as a single candle. Over generations, some candles have no daughters. Some have daughters, but those daughters have no daughters of their own. One by one, purely by chance, every flame goes out, except one. That's what happened to every other maternal line on Earth. Not violently, not all at once, just slowly, silently, generation after generation, until only one lineage remained unbroken, all the way to today. It's the same reason a family name can die out over centuries, even if the family itself keeps having children. Somewhere down the line, every branch is a daughter, a daughter, a daughter, until one day, there simply isn't another one. Does that mean everyone else back then has no descendants at all? Not exactly. Their other genes could still be passed down through sons, or through daughters whose lines eventually ran through sons instead. What died out wasn't their genetic contribution entirely. It was specifically their unbroken maternal thread, the one particular kind of DNA that only travels mother to daughter, forever. This is where the story gets even stranger, because mitochondrial Eve is not alone in this pattern. There's a male equivalent, called Y-chromosome Adam, traced the same way through father to son to son. And here's the part that breaks people's brains every time. Mitochondrial Eve and Y-chromosome Adam almost certainly never met. They may have lived tens of thousands of years apart. Why? Because they're not the first man and first woman. They're simply the most recent common ancestors along two completely separate genetic pathways. Every other line on both paths just happened to break before reaching today. It's less like a single Adam and Eve, and more like two different rivers that both happened to survive, out of thousands that dried up along the way. Researcher Svante Pääbo, who later won a Nobel Prize for his work sequencing ancient human and Neanderthal genomes, helped confirm just how much has been lost and preserved in these tangled lines. His work showed that some of us even carry small fragments of Neanderthal DNA from a separate human species that mixed briefly with our ancestors before disappearing. Your genome isn't just a line, it's a patchwork of survivors. So what does this actually mean for you, sitting here right now? It means the woman scientists call Eve isn't a myth, and she isn't magic. She's a mathematical certainty, the way any single unbroken lineage becomes a certainty if you wait long enough. Every human alive today is proof that her particular thread never snapped, not once, across 2,000 centuries, through ice ages, migrations, disease, and disaster. Think about what that actually required. Not one lucky birth, thousands of lucky births, one after another, an unbroken chain of mothers who survived long enough to have daughters, who survived long enough to have daughters of their own. One famine could have ended it. One difficult birth, one migration into the wrong valley at the wrong time. It didn't happen. Not once. In 200,000 years. That's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. You are not just descended from strong ancestors, or clever ones, or lucky ones in some vague sense. You are the product of an unbroken maternal line that survived every single filter the last 200,000 years could throw at it. Ice ages that wiped out entire regions, volcanic winters that nearly ended the species, migrations across deserts and oceans with no guarantee of what waited on the other side. Every one of your maternal ancestors made it through when countless others did not. And here's where it becomes personal. Somewhere in a lab today, you could take a simple test and trace your own mitochondrial line. Not to mitochondrial Eve directly, that's too far back for most consumer tests, but to a haplogroup, a branch on that same tree that tells you roughly which migration your maternal ancestors took out of Africa, and roughly when. Some branches went east into Asia, some pushed north into Europe, some crossed into the Americas thousands of years before written history began. You are, quite literally, still walking the path your mitochondria mapped out for you. It also means something quietly radical about the idea of race and division. Every human population, no matter where it's settled or what it looks like today, shares this same root. Not similar roots, the same root, the same woman. The genetic differences we've come to associate with separate ancestries are almost impossibly recent, a rounding error compared to the 200,000 years since every one of us branched from the same trunk. Mark Stoneking's later research, expanding on that original 1987 study, only reinforced how shallow those differences really are compared to what we share. So the next time you look at a stranger, anywhere on Earth, in any country, speaking any language, remember what's actually true underneath the surface. You are not distant relatives. You are close relatives, on a scale most people never stop to consider. 200,000 years sounds long, but genetically, it's practically yesterday. You've probably traced your family tree back a few generations. It turns out you didn't need to. It was already traced for you, in every cell of your body, all the way back to one woman whose story never broke.